Two-time Hall of Fame inductees, Brent Godarzi and Marty Young. Back-to-back #1 trucking firm in the nation. Back-to-back best attorney and best law firm in East Texas.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Gilmer Buckeye Coaches Show, brought to you by all of our great sponsors and the head coach and athletic director of the Gilmer Buckeyes, Mr. Alan Metzel. Well, Alan, we are coming off of week 3, and a very, very interesting week it was. And I want to get into that, plus the highlights that we're going to talk about, and then some of next week. So just so everybody can kind of mark their calendars, we're home literally for 4 weeks now, one of those being an off week. Why don't you walk us through the next month?
Okay, well, this week we'll be playing Lindale, obviously another Division I school, really talented. They're working through some youth on their team, just like we are right now. They lost a close one to Van the other night. The following week we're playing Walnut Grove, which is in Prosper, brand new school. Probably they haven't been classified as an A yet. That'll happen in February, but probably will be number-wise about a 5A Division II probably. And they are doing well. You know, they've had a good early season. They've just kind of had to find teams that had an open day, and we were one of them that agreed to play them, so they'll be coming here in 2 weeks. Then, like you said, we're open, and then we start district here against Pleasant Grove. So
the real season starts in 3 weeks, but we do know that we are no longer going to be on the road, at least for the next 4 weeks anyway. Well, a long drive up to Paris, and we'll talk about all that, but want to give you a few points to just clarify, because obviously we get asked questions in and around the community as football season's kicked off. Let's talk about the motto for this year, which is oh so appropriate. It's prophetic from your side that we've got this motto. Kytson, why don't you walk us through what that really means?
Okay, well, when we set a motto each year, it's a collaborative effort. We get the captains of the season that is coming up to start thinking. We start talking about, what are things that represent our team? Give me a word to describe us. Give me a word. When you look at our team, what do you see? And so we start writing those kind of characteristic type things down. And so we start heading into the summer. We begin to start shooting around some ideas. And I try as much as I can to coach them from a standpoint of what we're looking for idealistically, but let them come to what they want. That way it's player-led, not coaches-led.
Right.
Because the whole point of the thing is to be a rallying cry for our team. And whenever you're going through a year and you have adversity and so forth, it's something we can go back and ground ourselves on. So this year we talked through several things. There's kind of a maturing process of learning how to choose that thing. Many times, they'll have ideas of some song or whatever, which is fine. But we always want to make it where it's something that's not just connect to the football team, but it's going to connect to our school, connect to our community, et cetera. So it's a bigger picture. And the guys were right on it this year, and they came up with this motto. It's one that I had shot out as a possibility a couple of years ago, and I think a couple of them had come across that and been thinking on it and liked it, and that is Kaizen. And Kaizen's a business, came from the business sector. After post-World War II, the Japanese came over and did some studies in our automotive industry and so forth, and this one particular guy leading in the industry over there was trying to make some changes, and he came up with some of the ideas, and this idea of everyone in each level of the process of building their automobiles, in this case, should have input and should have ownership so that they feel more included, and that the goal was going to be Kaizen, which is continuous improvement on the product, day in, day out, week in, week out, year in, year out. And of course the guy we know now is Toyota, the guy who created Toyota, and they've done pretty well. So anyway, this whole mindset, transferring that over to our team, is we want to have continuous improvement. Like you've already alluded to, in a lot of places we're young this year, and some are young from not having a whole lot of varsity experience and yet being on the varsity. Some are just young because they're sophomores, and even some freshmen. Davian King got dressed out the other night. So we're having some guys that are having to grow up, and as a player, we've got guys with a high ceiling, I think, talent-wise. It's just you've got to get them out there. You've got to put them in the fire, let them grow into their positions, into what this team is becoming. And each week I feel like we're getting better. So I do believe that we are holding true to our motto. And hopefully by the end of the year, it'll be something everybody is really grabbing hold of and seeing how it's something that doesn't just look at our team, but our community as well.
Well, I guarantee you, for all those folks out there in the community, and this kind of hits home because I happen to, my area of study in international business.
Right.
And a lot of people don't know that Lexus is Toyota. And that motto of continuous, relentless pursuit of perfection comes from Kaizen. That's where it relates to. So I was really proud when I saw that was what the guys chose this year.
Right.
But boy, I tell you what, it's become really appropriate as you start looking at what's happened the first couple of weeks. And I want to get into that too, because I've been asked several times in the community about, our scheduling. And I think that that the reality and the theory are sometimes divorced, right? So theoretically, a lot of people say, wow, Gilmer loads the schedule towards the beginning of the year. And certainly we've been punching above our weight class since way before you or even became the head coach.
No doubt.
In our first 5 weeks, which precede our district play, which we do not control.
Right.
So first of all, explain that a little bit to fans out there in terms of how the districts are chosen and how that comes up every 2 years, and then how that equates to playoffs and what happens. And then we'll back our way into that first 5 weeks where the reality is that nobody wants to play Gilmer.
Well, to go ahead and pick up where you're leaving off, our districts are redone every 2 years. We're on a 2-year cycle. This is the second of our 2 years. In October, the schools in Texas, we turn in our numbers of what the numbers in our high school. They have a snapshot day. That day then sets where everybody is. They draw the lines of, okay, these teams are 6A, 5A, 4A, et cetera, all the way down. And so once they do that, then they start taking those numbers and putting them in districts. And so we have nothing to do with that. And they let us know in February who those teams are. Once we get that, I had somebody ask me, well, why are you starting with Pleasant Grove? Well, because once we get the district, then we have a meeting with all those teams and we randomly draw. That's who we drew. A couple of years ago, we randomly drew that they were our 10th game. So it's not a matter of, we're trying to set it at week 10 or week 5 or 7 or whatever. It's random.
It just happens.
District is random for the whole district. And so that's how that played out. It'll be redone again this year, and we'll find out again in February.
And then, of course, UIL then determines from the results of that district play what the seeding is between Division I and 4A and Division II and 4A, which we are.
Right.
We've talked at nauseum on the broadcast about we play Division I teams. Well, really what we're talking about so far when we talk about Chapel Hill, we talk about Lindale, we talk about Paris and Kilgore.
Right.
They are 4A, but they're Division I, which means they're in the big school division.
They're in the bigger bracket.
They have a couple of hundred extra kids than we do, and we have to kind of punch above our weight class.
Right.
Well, at the end of the year, 4A Division II and 4A Division I going into the playoffs basically branch out.
Right.
And then to your point, of course, we're back-to-back now, hopefully back-to-back district champions in our district in 4A Division II. But that then sets the seeding for the playoffs, which you also have no control over.
No, they already have set up where the region and district. This district plays this district, and number 1 plays 4, and number 2 plays 3, and number 3 plays 2, and number 4 plays 1, and that's set up, and it's just a matter of where this district lines up 1 through 4, and that one lines up 1 through 4, and then it's all set.
And when playoffs start, other than a coin flip and deciding where you're going to play, who the opponent is has nothing to do with Coach Metzel or anybody in the field house or any administrator. It's truly a set schedule.
Correct.
So now let's back up a half a step to the first 5 games. And I say all the time, obviously these games mean everything to you guys. We're up here on a Sunday shooting the show. The field house is full. It's full of kids doing film. It's full of coaches working on game plans. So it means a lot.
Absolutely.
It just doesn't count.
It doesn't count from the standpoint of the playoffs. That's what the goal is there. You always used to hear Bill Parcells say, "Man, it's all about getting in the tournament." Get into the tournament. You get into the tournament, you can go win the thing. So what every school, every coach, they have their own ideas of how to go about getting into the tournament. And I think in different places and different times, there's different routes. If you're playing or coaching in a school that maybe doesn't have a whole lot of wins, and they don't necessarily have a winning culture, well, then you probably need to find some games, you hope, are going to find some that you have a higher likelihood of winning, because you're trying to create a winning culture when someone hasn't experienced that. When maybe you've gotten to have a winning culture and guys feel like, hey, we can go play for it all, well, then you can ratchet up the level of difficulty in the preseason, because your goal is to not just go get into the tournament, but now you're wanting to win it. You're trying to win the whole thing. And so as a result, we ratchet up that level of difficulty, so to speak. Now, also you have to add in there that a lot of times, because of past years or whatever, where we've had maybe some winning records or success against teams, they don't want to play. And so it is what it is. The number of teams that are willing to play us are smaller now than they used to. So all that factors in there. But there's no doubt I'm not upset that we played Chapel Hill and Kilgore and Paris, and that we're going to play Lindale and Walnut Grove. I'm not. Now, I also know that we've got to make sure that our team feels good about who they are and where they are in this growth process. But it's all about getting into that tournament, so to speak, and then doing well in it as well. So we're on our journey. That's the journey of the 2023 team. We've had some frustrating moments. We've had some, losing at the last second of week 2. That was tough. The other night we had the seesaw battle, come from 10 down to go 10 up, and then Paris scored, and then all of a sudden the game's called for lightning with 6 minutes. So there's been all kinds of weird things that have gone on, but that's all part of a year.
But they don't count record-wise, but they're certainly meaningful games in terms of the preparation.
Absolutely.
And I made this comment to you last Wednesday before the the lightning strike all the way up in Paris. And I've watched a lot of Gilmer football, and so has Jeff Rash. I think probably since about 2003, and I go back to the 2003 Salina game when Salina really had that reputation that Gilmer now enjoys of, oh my gosh, they've won everything there is to win. And we faced them in the playoffs, and we really went and put it on them. And I remember telling Coach Traylor walking off the field, it's different now. The expectation from here on in, I remember Jeff saying, I don't ever want there to be a time again when the expectation isn't a state championship.
That's exactly right.
And that is
we embrace
the culture.
That
is
we
the
embrace
culture.
that. We're not going to try and dodge that. We're not going to, try and make excuses or whatever. That's you want that. And people say, well, people are upset that you're there. Okay. I'm thrilled that we get to coach in a town where it matters to people in the town. It matters to them. They want to win. I love that. Now, believe me, I'm going to do everything I can, and we are here in this field house. We want to win more than they do. We're spending hundreds of hours up here. But you want to be in a town that eats up their football. And so I'm very grateful that is the expectation, and we're working hard to fulfill that.
Well, yeah, there was a time long ago where Gilmer, in 2004, the first year we won a state championship, that the words around the state of Texas was Gilmer hasn't played anybody. That hasn't been the case ever since then.
Right.
And it's certainly not the case this year. We're playing the same preseason schedule that we did last year.
Correct.
And we went and ran the table 5-0. We went to Chapel Hill and beat Chapel Hill. They turned it over 8 times in a game, and that same group of kids that were last year sophomores, this year juniors, were within a touchdown with 4 minutes left to play in the fourth quarter. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, do we really want to see him again next year? But I really made the comment to Jeff that I feel better about where we are after week 3 this year than I've really felt about where we are after week 3 since you've been the head coach here. Talk a little bit about, there's ways to compare, and sometimes wins and losses don't have really anything to do with it.
No doubt. Yeah, I mentioned to the kids the other day, I said, you can go to a track meet where that's maybe smaller or whatever and win all the medals, but that doesn't mean that you necessarily got any better, versus going to a place where maybe you don't win as many and yet you ran your best times, So this is the time of the year to focus on those things, to focus on, are we getting better? Are we maximizing our potential? Or, as opposed to when, let's say you're playing maybe a lesser opponent and you got a W and people feel better and they're patting you on the back, and yet you still have tons of mistakes. It's just they were not exposed. So hopefully, I'll say this, I'd rather play these kind of teams and win. I'll just say that. We'll get that out there. But regardless, we want to take a look at each game, look at the scenario, look at what each of us are doing, and maybe as a unit, the O-line, the D-line, the secondary, the receivers, the running back, quarterback, etc. And we have to compare ourselves to the standard of championships. And are we meeting that? If we're not, then we've got to get better. And so you hope to use this time of the year to really improve yourself as a group.
Well, coming off a win Friday night, 43-40, a win is a win. And I made the comment even after the Chapel Hill game to Coach Edwards. And obviously we knew about the adjustments they were making up here that whole week. And normally you see the biggest improvements in most teams in every level, at every level, between week 1 and between week 3. And I can say that I don't remember seeing this much improvement, especially from the young guys. We can kind of talk about some of that when we go into the highlights, and I'm sure you'll highlight it. But that's why I thought the motto was so appropriate this year with Kyson, because that is what you're seeing happen before your eyes with some of these young guys. We've talked about how well the offensive line has played. Compared, I don't remember watching a game and not having to talk about a bad snap that happened or things that are penalties with young guys that we just haven't seen. Right. I mean, I just feel so good about where we are after week 3, and I know we're going to see some of that on the highlights. So let's jump in and talk about what was a crazy night in Paris, Texas.
It was.
The last time that we were in Paris was, I think, 5 years ago. And I told you on Wednesday that I needed to send a memo to the officials chapter in Commerce that actually there is an automatic first down that comes with defensive holding. But I was really pleased with the cleanliness in terms of how clean the game was played on both sides. They were surprisingly played really hard.
They did.
But we just ran into some weird stuff that happened to us that came out to 6 minutes left in the game, and we all got on the bus at almost midnight and went home. But I think a lot of bright spots that we can talk about.
No doubt. We'll start out early in the game. We get the ball. We receive the ball, drive down the field. We scored. We had a penalty on us out on the edges on a block, and so we got moved back. So it puts us in a position where we have a 3rd and long situation, and so we decide we're going to go with a pass to Brendan Webb. We've talked about Brendan and some of the things he's done and the breakout that he had against Kilgore, and he had a fantastic night the other night. I've got him highlighted here in his route. Watch him double move the corner here and just really get himself open with that move, that stick of his foot. He's wide open, and right now the great thing is Caden's already thrown the ball. The ball's out of his hands, and then there is Brendan getting high point, going up, grabbing the ball, getting his foot down. Big play right there.
Every aspect of that play just shows you how far those two young guys, as juniors, by the way, they're juniors, have come. Because when you watch Brennan, not only his breakout party that he had in Kilgore, which was phenomenal.
Right.
I thought he even took the next step this week. But when you see him just from a regular coaching standpoint, stem and run a route like that, there's nothing to critique. Not the throw, not the route, that was exactly how you draw it up.
And it was, and resulted in a touchdown. And so and the thing with him, we haven't had Tarek the past couple of weeks, and so it's forced Brendan to the forefront, and Jeremiah as well, who we'll talk about. And these guys are making plays, so now when you add Tarek in, hopefully soon, that now you've got a 3-headed monster that, and that's not even talking about our running backs, but you've become more versatile, and you've given the defense much more that they're going to have to think about.
Kaizen.
Correct.
That's
Correct.
Right back to the motto.
Exactly. Well, here we go. Paris goes down and scores. We have really spent a good deal of time talking about our special teams, trying to hone in on them, finding ways to carve out flipping the field, flipping possession, stealing a point. And so, being able to be in a position where Paris scores, and you've got to be able to counterattack right there. And so here we see them line up for their extra point, and you're going to see Elias Castillo, one of our senior captains, who's going to work through the offensive line. He's going to push through and block this extra point right here. And, anytime you can steal a point, we learned that last week against Kilgore, that's huge. That can be the difference in the game. Which
in this case, it was.
Right.
I mean, you look at the second block that's coming up later that we return for 2 points. That's a 3-point swing.
Was a 3-point swing.
That's the difference in the game.
Exactly. And that's another point right there. So you got 4 points on extra point that we were able to gain on them.
Special teams, the third aspect of the game, third phase of the game.
Critical.
Obviously, especially when you get to levels like this where you got two really good teams.
Yes.
It's the little things that matter.
That's exactly right. What separates you from them, and it can be these very small areas like this. Play number 3, we go to Will Henderson on a TD run. Will, we all talk about his supersonic speed, but the guy runs hard too. He really gets a lot of dirty yardage. And that's impressive for a speed guy. Now, I've got a couple of guys. Here's Elias again at tight end, and you're going to see him do a great job on a block right here on the edge. He's going to get the edge right there. You just see his positioning, which was fantastic. You see Brendan Webb, who just scored the touchdown. Look at him outside getting inside leverage on the corner, which creates a crease for Will. Will sticks his foot, runs through a couple of tackles, and gets into the end zone. So, it's not just a running back. It's a collection of people, along with obviously the offensive line. And these guys are getting onto people. Watch our linemen here cut off the backside. You'll see Felipe, and you've got Lucas Cano and Jerem Pilcher, Chase Walker, and Sean Wallace. Sorry, my mind went blank there for a second. And watch them on the backside cut off their guys. See how Jerem gets his body turned on the linebacker. So now when Will sticks his foot, they don't have a Mike linebacker right there in that hole. That's big. So great job by the whole group in being able to finish off that drive with a score.
And I can tell you, without a doubt, the bright spot of this whole season, and I can't say that it's a shocker knowing the kids and how hard they work during the summer, but how quickly they have played on the offensive line. Mm-hmm. A+.
Yeah, they've really just bonded together. They're a unit, literally, as a group that they walk together. They're close together in the locker room. They're doing things together. They enjoy each other. They're at meetings all the time. You're not having to try and call them and get them here and all that kind of stuff. They're taking pride in their role. And when you have an offensive line that begins to do that, you can end up having a really special team.
I can sense it coming.
Yeah, you really can. All right, our next one here is Elias again. He did a great job in this, getting in between the center and the guard on his gap. He comes through and blocks this extra point, again, late in the second quarter. Here he goes with the block, and then you're going to see Aaron Bell with a scoop. You get a chance to see Aaron's speed for a big guy. He gets out, and he's being led by a couple of Buckeyes. I love seeing them running side by side with him. And as you say, it could have been a point that they scored. We don't block it. And instead, we scored 2. So that's a 3-point swing, and we won by 3.
Well, that triggered everything because along with those 2 points, that was 2 of 25 unanswered that we ran off until Paris kind of woke up and scored again at the end of the game.
Right.
But I really sensed the whole tide of the game change
momentum
there.
That's right.
And that's Elias being a senior leader and not giving up on a play.
Exactly.
He'd already blocked one before. But I mean, he was doing a great Matthew Burton impersonation with that little swims cut through the. I couldn't fit through that space, but he got through that space twice to block 2 important kicks and 4 points in it. I mean, that 4 points belongs to Elias.
Yes. Great job by him, and like you say, creating momentum. So this leads us into this offensive drive where it's right before the half. We are now at a place where it's 4th down and we have 2 seconds to go in the half. And so, your options are pretty limited,
Gotta put it in the end zone some way.
Gotta get in the end zone or the half ends. And so we thought of several different things. They've got 7 guys they're dropping, and so there's not a whole lot of places to go, but we called a play that we knew we felt like we could get it to Jeremiah. Then it was going to be, can he get in the end zone? And so we run this play where we bring him deep into the middle. great throw by Caden Tennyson, and then Jeremiah he wheels it in there and has a couple of players that come and
So who
help.
was it? Connor and Lucas? Is that who? It was hard to see from the
couldn't
press
tell.
box.
I couldn't tell you either. I was yelling so hard, get him in there. But and then the view here is so far away on this, it's hard to see.
I know Connor came up from the offside route and was the first guy to kind of hit him, and then you just see a big
This
body
mass,
come in behind,
yep, come in and
and
hit him.
everybody pushes back.
I think Aaron Bell was in on that as well.
Yeah,
so,
I thought that really was the play that just personified the whole night.
I agree.
Which was just will.
Yes.
Just absolute.
Overcome
those guys
adversity.
deciding we are going to just get it done.
That's right.
And they literally did on that play because that's the last play of the half,
That's it.
except for the extra point.
Right. Well, it just, as a coach, that kind of stuff, you feel like, okay, our team is taking a step.
Right.
Things are not going well. We're struggling. We're not hitting on all cylinders. And yet, we're going to find a way. We're going to find a way. And they did. And so, as you say, it turns the momentum. Now you go into halftime, you have doubt in the other team's mind, you have confidence in your mind, and then we come back out and take the lead, et cetera. So huge, huge play. Very, very proud of these guys for the fight that they're showing. Okay, we'll move to the next play. I've got our defense. You've got Devin McDonald, who has really been playing well at linebacker, a sophomore, and then you've got Aaron Bell on a sack here. So here comes Devin. He times out his stunt well. There's Aaron on the side. So here they come. There's Devin. He gets the quarterback moving, and Aaron goes and finishes him off. And that sack right there ended up forcing them into a punt situation and got the ball back for us. So that was a key point in the early second half.
And just the simple fact that, we talked about the adjustments after the first game that Coach Edwards made, bringing AB down into that 5 technique, which really added some, you look at Tyler Lee down there.
Bulk.
And
yep.
I mean, we've got some beef around that. We're an even front now. But I think you pointed something out Wednesday that most fans also don't really understand. We've got all kinds of fronts in the repertoire. So some of it is just seeing and figuring out, maybe things you think in practice just need to make an adjustment, which is why the biggest improvements in most teams come between week 1 and week 3.
Right.
But I thought the black flag is really in the process of finding itself.
I think that's a very good statement. I actually thought about using that phrase. It's still, because we have so many guys that have been young and that we're adding into the varsity mix, we're having to see where their skill set is best. We're having to make sure that they understand their assignments. We're having to play guys together that haven't played that many games together, quite frankly, because they've been on the freshman or the JV or on the varsity. So we're melding together. It's coming. But you got people, it's there.
It keeps getting better. It's your motto all over again. They just keep getting better. And you talked about already Devin McDonald. I mean, I'm just watching Amara Arona blossom right before my eyes all over again.
Very talented.
I don't think Amara, I still think I'm bigger than Amara. I see him around and I think there's no way that you're that good of a football player
He was
just with the instincts.
Right.
And you start to see some of that with 26 that's coming on, and you just start, it's hard not to notice when those guys are making such quantum leaps week after week.
Right, I couldn't agree more. We'll move back to the offense, and I mentioned Jeremiah Noble. Of course, he just had that touchdown before half. Here he is making a big deep throw catch. Caden is reading the secondary, and so we actually were thinking he was going to take the intermediate route. But when we line up for the play, they lined up tighter than we were expecting. And so we're talking on the headsets and going, well, he could probably take the deep throw. Let's see what he does. And he did, and just threw a great pass. And Jeremiah runs a great route. You can see they try and redirect him. He dips under, but it doesn't let it get him off his course. And Caden just drops it right on him, and big 40-yard gain right there.
Huge catch.
Yes.
I was reminded watching the Texas game yesterday with that. Stump Godfrey would call it a 3-ball. It was very, very high. Perfectly thrown, perfectly caught. We know that those guys are classmates, been doing this together since they were little bitty.
That's right.
And that one play, it really kind of showed up.
It did.
I thought that the steps that Brendan made last week, and you saw a little bit of flash from Jeremiah on the offensive side. He's been a stalwart since his freshman year defensively. He was that guy that was that outside linebacker and really, really talented. So now he's bringing that talent to the offensive side,
Right.
and it turns that hot sauce into salsa.
There you go. Moving down, we carry the ball all the way down, get to about the 3 to 4 yard line. We end up with a 4th down call, and decided to go with a rollout pass to hit Brendan again. So we bring Brendan in motion. We've used this play for years. We just dress it up differently throughout the year. But this is one where we're going to bring him across behind the offensive line. He runs a little arrow route. Great job of getting into the end zone. And Caden did a great job of just putting it on him where he was able to secure the pass. And
Really hard to defend that play.
very hard. Because you can see the guy's running in man, and you've got to run over the linebackers, and he's running away from you. Very difficult.
It's
very difficult.
all those angles, but you can also tell that those guys have done that a time or two in
Right,
practice.
right.
I mean,
The
that is a
timing.
practice play
That's
from a
right.
timing standpoint. And Caden, to your point, and that's 4th down.
Right.
I mean, that's score or you give the ball back right there.
Right. No, he just came out and threw it right on him. It was great great job being calm, just trusting the work that you've put in, and they put it on him and got the touchdown. So we'll go from there, and I'll finish up with a couple of runs, one by Will Henderson and one by Alex Sims. But this one by Will, to me, it truly shows his will to not go down. And so you see him here as he gets the ball, and you can see our guys getting the edge, the blockers. Great job right there. That's Devin McDonald again with great physical block. But just look how he's just breaking tackles and running through. He's churning those knees. Again, a lot of times not what you see a track star do. You know, they're more run fast and get out of bounds or whatever. And Will, he's a great running back.
Well, that's one of your good friends and my good friends who is running a top 10 Division I program right now in your neck of the woods. Obviously, they see the times that Will's run. He's an All-American in track. He went up to Oregon, and he finished as an All-American track athlete at 10.6, and people forget he ran 10.2 at state because he wasn't working on football the whole time. He was working on his starts and track, and it is a science when you're a 100-meter sprinter, and there are very few 17-year-olds on this continent that are that fast.
No doubt.
But he asked me, hey, what kind of football player is he? And my comment was, Will is a football player that can run track, not a track player trying to play football.
No doubt.
That
And you
kid,
see it.
between the tackles, is as good as anybody we've ever had.
I agree. He's very, very gifted, and just really is willing to work on the little things, his blocking. I asked him the other night, what are you working, what's your goal for being better tonight? And he said, my pass blocking, I got to get it better. That's the first thing out of his mouth, and so that excites me because he's just blossoming as a player. So here you see Alec. Will had that long run. He was a little bit gassed, so he comes out. Alec comes in. Alec's got incredible vision when it comes to running. So here he is right here, and you're just going to see him hit up inside on this counter play, find the hole, and work through. There's a lot of traffic in there. And I'm going to show you from the end zone. You'll just see they stunt. They're moving. There's a lot of guys going a lot of different ways, and he just follows his blocking, makes his cut, gets into the end zone, and scores for us.
Well, I'll say two things about Alec. Number one, because I've been asked about this 100 times. Yes, his last name is Sims. Yes, his grandfather
is Billy Sims.
Who has a Heisman Trophy.
Correct.
So it's not like there are no expectations for him to be a really good running back.
Correct.
He just happens to be a really good running back.
He does.
As with his vision and his cutting and some real size to him. And again, we got a couple of years left on this contract, which I'm excited about. The last thing I really wanted to touch on is what's always so important here. I mean, you've been the quarterback's coach of, Stump Godfrey won Mr. Texas football. It does not get any better than that from a position standpoint. You were the guy behind that. We're a quarterback-centric offense. We go as our quarterback goes. And Caden Tennyson, obviously getting to start his entire sophomore year, you've already pointed out that that was the difference between you knew it last year. And Caden played great.
He did.
But unfortunately getting hurt towards the end of the year, which really affected a lot of stuff that we wanted to do. Coming into 3 games this year and literally going against the competition that he's gotten, people don't realize that defensive coordinator that he saw on Friday night was a college defensive coordinator that was putting up some of the most exotic high school looks that I've ever seen. I mean,
truly,
literally bringing down safeties out of cover 3, putting 5. It's like Coach Patterson is back there somewhere with that TCU 5 DB defense, and he handled it.
He did.
I mean, and when it came to throwing the ball away, when it came to poise, staying out of negative plays, I mean, that was another mental quantum leap, I thought that Caden made that I think is going to wind up playing huge dividends when games start to count.
Absolutely. Well, the past 2 weeks, you've just seen him really settling in, making big-time throws. You know, he's able to, first of all, he has a big-time arm. You know, I mean, he can throw the ball like a lot of people, they just can't even do it physically, you know. And I'm not just talking about a deep pass like he did to Jeremiah, but I'm talking about those corner routes when you're on the right hash and you're making that throw to the left hash.
That whole shot over the corner in front of the safety
very impressive.
That is a Saturday and Sunday big-time throw.
That's big time.
Yeah, he makes that look easy.
But the part of the calmness, the poise, the being okay when the last play wasn't great, being able to play the next play, those kind of things, those are the places that he's really blossoming and continues to have a high ceiling. So he really has a long way that he can go, which is just that much more exciting. But he's stepping into that role. We're thoroughly enjoying seeing him do it. And just, you know, there are times when you're just excited to watch the ride, you know, watch him and see what he does. So
hey, we all got to watch Stump Godfrey senior year. We know how that feels.
No
and he knows how that feels looking at Big Brother, who did it at a very, very high level, all-state quarterback, you know, in contention for that Mr. Texas football slot.
Right.
And hey, from what I hear, Brandon is really coming on down at UTSA with Jeff.
He's a good showing.
So that's something we'll look forward to. So before we kind of close out, first, we've been playing football for 110 years here in Gilmer. Lots of history coming out as we speak. We got guys like Chris Boyd that are suited up as we speak for the Cardinals playing on television in the NFL. So it's not like the expectation of things happening that start here in the field house aren't going to be good. But I was just texting Jeff and GJ on a little thread. The second time in history yesterday when two head coaches faced off where at the collegiate level, one had been the high school head coach and one had been his quarterback. Guy named Jim Harbaugh at Michigan and David Shaw at Stanford is the only other time in history that had happened. Coach Harbaugh was the quarterback's coach or head coach at the high school level for David Shaw when he was his quarterback at Palo Alto High School. How about that?
That's pretty cool.
Jeff and GJ thought it was pretty cool. Jeff thought it was cooler than GJ because Jeff got the best of GJ yesterday. I do have the feeling that there will be lots more historic things that we can point to in the future coming up. So congratulations to both those guys.
What
We're
an
so proud of them.
exciting day. Yeah.
It was a cool day.
It was a cool day.
There are not a lot of high schools out there that say Friday night can kind of be whatever happens is kind of the warm-up act for whatever's going to happen the rest of the weekend. But it's good to turn on the TV and watch Buckeyes all over the place.
No doubt. It's pretty special.
Cool time to be a Gilmer Buckeye fan. So come out next week. Again, no excuses. We're 4 straight weeks at home, and one of those nights you don't even have to show up or turn on the television because we've got an off week. We got the Lindale Eagles next week. Lindale comes off of a big game against their rival, the Van Vandals. Give us a little preview of what we're going to expect to see. Obviously, Coach Cochran over there, they do a fantastic job.
Great
and they
program.
got Gilmer circled on their calendar every year.
Sure. And Coach Cochran's a super person. He's doing it right. He's got a great program. He's consistently really good every year. They are again this year. They're always going to be very disciplined in the things that they do on offense and defense. They're well coached. Their offensive line does a really good job. They've got Casey Pose committed to Alabama. You know that you've got some talented people on their team, and they're going to play hard. They're not going to quit. You know, you get ahead of them, they're just going to scrap back. It's a war when you play them, and so we know this will be a battle. We look forward to it because it's fun to play people who are good. The iron sharpens iron. And we'll look forward to a great game on Friday night.
Punching above our weight class once again. The 4th straight Division I 4A team that we played before we play the 5A team. Before we get into our biggest rival for district after an off week. So things aren't going to be boring through the month of September and into October here as usual. And I'm excited. I'm excited from where I see this team after 3 weeks. We come off that win against Paris, which was a long and crazy night with all the lightning. I don't think I've ever seen a punt go straight into a guy's stomach and stick. Which was the last play of our game. That wasn't on the highlight, but I don't think I'd believe it if I saw it anyway. So lots to look forward to. I know you're excited. I know we're excited. The town's got a lot to be excited about. as do our kids.
Right.
And that's the real
That's what
thing
it's
that it's
about.
all about. So for myself, Todd Robinson, the head coach and athletic director, Mr. Alan Metzel of the Gilmer Buckeyes, we want to thank you for supporting our kids. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching our show. We'll see you Friday night right here in Jeff Traylor Stadium in Gilmer, 7:30 kickoff against the Lindale Eagles. Go Buckeyes.